Thank everyone for being here. Today we're talking about legal AI built for higher ed. I will say anecdotally, we just completed a market study, which I'll be talking about today, to broadly look at legal AI adoption and adoption specifically within transactional work. And the study results we'll be sharing today, and I think you'll find them interesting. We did a similar survey among higher ed and procurement professionals within higher ed, and the results were noticeably different in one very important vector, and that is that we're seeing much less adoption of any type of AI tool for transactional work. While simultaneously, what we're reading from other studies is that you all are busier than ever and there's more work than ever on your desk. So that may not be the story for all of you, but that's certainly what we learned in some of our initial analysis. And some of you may agree with that and may disagree, and very open to that. But without further ado, let's kick this off. We're 2 minutes after. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Preston Clark, the CEO and co-founder of SimpleDocs and Law Insider. I'm joined today by my colleague, Jennifer Davidson. By way of introduction, I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll have Jennifer do the same. Colleges and universities are really important to us. We're a technology company. We sell legal tech software into corporate in-house teams and law firms. Why do we care about higher ed so much? For a couple of reasons that I think are important. First, my previous job before I moved into legal tech, which was about 14 years ago, was I was in-house counsel for the University of Miami under Eileen Ugalde and Donna Shalala, and it was the best job I've ever had. Not as good as being a founder. That's my favorite thing ever, but it was just a wonderful experience. It's also the case that along the way, Jennifer and I built a large business sort of in between selling Title IX compliance to literally 1,400 or 1,500 colleges and universities and systems. We've worked with just about every system in the country. We've worked with just about every compliance department in the country, from UCOP to the Tennessee Board of Regents to the Georgia system, SUNY, CUNY, you name it. We've done it, and we appreciate, and we learned a lot about how unique colleges and universities are. So I sort of knew that already from working with the University of Miami, but we learned a great deal along the way in terms of how you all procure software, how you think about things at the system level and institution level, how community colleges think differently from big schools. This market's really important to us. We're building for lawyers generally, but we're trying to be hyper focused on colleges and universities. And so we're really grateful that you all will spend some time with us. With that, Jennifer, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Preston. I think you painted a wonderful picture of our experience jointly and separately within higher education. So just to give you a little bit more perspective, I've been sort of selling into higher education now for, the slide says 15, but if I want to age myself a little bit more, it's probably closer to 20. And over those 20 years, we've seen the complexity grow in terms of institutions and their requirements with their vendors. And invariably, though, we also found that very often when we were negotiating contracts, there were several terms that always stuck out. Choice of law, certainly one of them, limitation of liability, indemnification, that we seem to be negotiating on a consistent basis with every single institution, organization, and system that we worked with. And when Preston approached me with this idea of SimpleDocs, specifically focusing on higher education, obviously I was very keen on it, just given the experience that I've had previously and the implications that it could have on a team of procurement, legal professionals at institutions of higher education. So I'm super pleased to be with you all today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Over the next 55 minutes, we'll be talking about the market. We'll be talking about AI tools generally and sort of how they're being adopted at global scale by legal departments. We will do a live demonstration to show you some of the ways that these tools might be considered and brought in to your workflows within your institutions or systems. And then we'll also share a case study from one of the institutions that has adopted the software to give their perspective on sort of what was the challenge that they intended to overcome and how they're overcoming that, in this case with the SimpleDocs platform. Our focus is on higher ed. As I said, Jennifer and I have worked with nearly 1,500 colleges and universities, but this is a new initiative for us. We started the higher ed focus about 6 months ago. Great early traction, but don't want to represent we have 1,000 institutions yet. We know that you got to build up. You all are very collegial and very collaborative, which is wonderful. And so part of today is to plant seeds and start bringing you into our ecosystem. One of the case studies you'll hear today is with Scott Brown at the University of Texas at Dallas. We have great partnerships at my alma mater at the University of Miami. And we even sort of transcend beyond traditional higher ed. And we have a great partnership with LCI Education as well, which some of you may be familiar with. The reason we're here is that, and I think higher ed is not unique to this, but it is maybe more acutely felt, which is that the work that we're being asked to do, the volume is up. And we met with a great institution yesterday that said, we've been managing contracts at our institution for 20 years. We were understaffed then, and we are understaffed now. But the general prevailing view is that volume is up, and for both legal and procurement, but headcount is flat. And in some cases, headcount is down. So you're being asked to do more with less. Expectations are up. Well, at the same time, we're hearing from deans and provosts and presidents that there's pressure from boards and others to say, what's our AI plan? How are we using AI to augment so that we can control costs, control headcount? And that's one of the themes that we're going to be talking about today. So every legal team is being asked to do more. Legal AI is entering the discussion specifically for legal and procurement. Other parts of the business and the institution are invariably looking at other tools, I'm sure. And so the question is now the right time to adopt a tool like this? Is it coming soon? How do we dip our toe into this? What is the right approach? Macro view. What is the legal profession doing as it relates to contract review? Specifically. So this isn't general, like there's different types of AI tools. There's ones that work with litigators and immigration. Today we're more focused on contract review, contract drafting, contract redlining, contract management. So we pulled a pretty large group. It ended up being about 275 total respondents, all attorneys, a combination of in-house, private practice, legal operations. And we saw high levels of adoption of AI in that work, not at home, not for meal planning, but specifically for transactional work. And that was really encouraging. So we're seeing globally some adoption, which as software providers is not surprising because once you start using these tools, you tend to not go back. Just like with email, once you started managing your life in that way, it became way easier. And why would we do what we were doing before? In terms of the tools that we're seeing the most adoption on, certainly we have a software tool that is very popular and that is used by thousands, but there's also a lot of general AI tools that are being adopted. Microsoft Copilot, as I'll show you in a moment, is in fact the most adopted and the least popular. And that's because it's the most proximate, because it's embedded in Microsoft by default, it tends to get used. But as I'll talk about more later, it doesn't tend to be the one that is the most championed because it tends to just sort of barely scratch the surface of what you need. So again, this is not AI generally. This is AI in contract work specifically. So this should resonate with all of you. This is another interesting one that hopefully is inspiring to you. Among that cohort of 270 plus respondents, the majority are using this tool multiple times a day, irrespective of the tool type, of which tool they're using. This is quickly becoming something that is a daily use. And certainly if you add it up multiple times a day, once a day, and multiple times a week, this is something that is being brought into the workflow And oh, by the way, not everyone reviews contracts every single day. And so some of the explanation around even the once a week or less than once a week can be attributable potentially to outliers in terms of volume. But by and large, these products are things that are becoming very broadly adopted. And by the way, we will share these slides and we'll share this study with you after to the extent that that's helpful. In terms of what are they doing? So what are people doing? What are lawyers doing in the realm of contracts with AI? Drafting clauses or contract language. So they're using it to create net new copy, indemnification clause, entire agreements. So this is a popular use case. Reviewing third party, very popular. We get a high volume of MSAs or DPAs or SaaS licensing agreements, and being able to review an agreement you've never seen before very quickly with a first set of eyes. I remember when I was in-house, I would find myself reviewing contracts that I had never seen before, and it was tech transfer agreements. And eventually you get the hang of it and you start to understand sort of what the expectations are within the institution. But I think for many of you, perhaps even the more tenured of you, you probably still find yourself reviewing a contract that either is fundamentally different or maybe has new language you've never seen before because AI language is now finding its way in or other. And then you can read the rest in terms of use cases, but it's summarizing, it's proposing red lines, it's comparing contracts to market standards, it's comparing to negotiation history or precedent. What have we done in the past with agreements of this type? So we're seeing broad, different use cases that are providing value and that are causing that daily usage that I showed you earlier. This is an interesting one for you to think about. If you've not adopted AI, this may be a more foreign concept. But one of the questions that comes up is, where do you want your AI to live? And we're seeing a combination of inside Microsoft Word, where a lot of us tend to review and negotiate and draft contracts. Then we're seeing another percentage that is, no, I just want it in a browser. Incidentally, we do both. But this is always an interesting insight for us because it tends to be that the drafting audience wants to be in a browser, and the review and redline and summary want to be inside Microsoft Word, where you probably already are when you receive that document because you double click on it, it opens up, and there you are. So the question now that we set out to answer was, how might you think about bringing AI into your organization? And the general view in the market now, and apologies if everyone understands this sort of very deeply already, but there are foundation models. These are Claude or Anthropic. These are OpenAI or ChatGPT, Gemini, that can be used if you have an enterprise version for some form of contract summary or best practices or other. And then there are legal specific tools. Obviously, we have a bias because we build a legal specific tool, but a part of our research study was to figure out among this group that uses not just us, but uses lots of other solutions to approach contract review, drafting, redline, all those wonderful examples I was just sharing, how these different audiences feel about the tool that they're using. Or put differently, do they love the legal specific tools as much as the general purpose, or and vice versa? So I'll show you those results. And again, there's a bias to this because these are the results that we hoped for, but we certainly didn't stack the deck. This was a broad survey that we conducted. And the good news is usage is high across all tools. So if you take anything from the presentation today, it should be contract and transaction teams and procurement teams at a global level are bringing AI into their work stream. And it's not that Simple Docs or Simple AI is winning all of the market. We are not. There's massive use case and massive frequency of use across tools. And so if you are trying to make some internal advocacy for the general incorporation of AI in drafting and review, hopefully this slide is compelling for you, which is that all the tools are getting used in a high volume. Now, it is the case, as I will show you in a moment, and as Jen will speak to, the more contextual the tool is, the more purpose-built it is, it tends to get used more often because it is built for more use cases than the general tools. So it's not that it's one is good and the other is bad. It's just we do more things, and with those more things, it sort of creates a cycle of greater usage. Now, in terms of confidence, this is a really important one. We all went to law school. We all passed the bar exam. We all have great reading comprehension. We're all good at analyzing, issue spotting, problem solving within transactional work. And so when we talk about AI, the question is this equivalent to a junior paralegal? Is it equivalent to a first year associate? Is it equivalent to a 1L intern on their first summer on the job? How should we think about it? And this really is interesting. And hopefully you'll find it interesting. We certainly did. And that is that the purpose-built tools like us tend to have much higher confidence. I'll show you in a few minutes why that is. It seems a little abstract. It's not just because we're better. There's very specific reasons for why the confidence is higher. But notably, the lowest performing was Copilot, which, if you'll remember a few slides ago, was the single most used tool among our survey respondents. So here you have a product that, because it is default embedded inside Microsoft Word, it's getting good adoption as you would expect it to. But the output that is being received, basically what it means, 0% here at the bottom, if you can see that, is that 0% of the respondents said that they're very confident with the output of Copilot. And I'm not here, even if I had something bad to say about Microsoft, I certainly wouldn't. And Microsoft does lots of wonderful things. They're one of the biggest companies in the entire world. This just happens to not be something that they had built as far ahead on. And so, as a general matter, we're seeing ChatGPT and Claude perform okay, but purpose-built legal AI tools, from a confidence perspective, are ranking higher. I don't know if you've ever seen this survey question. You've all seen the NPS survey question. How likely would it be that you would recommend this product or service to a friend or colleague? We've all heard that question. We've probably participated. This is sort of the 2026 version of NPS, which is, how would you feel if someone ripped this out of your hands and you didn't get to use it anymore? It's often referred to as a product market fit survey, which is just how attached are your users to the product, and consistent with level of trust, frequency of use. It's not surprising that the general purpose tools were less married to them. However, all of these tools are getting used in high volume. So again, if you take nothing else from today, I hope you ask for these slides and it helps you make a business case to bring AI into your work, because I think it can save you enormous amounts of time. And that's irrespective of tool. I think we'll save you more time, but I won't pitch you on that just yet. So general purpose summary: adoption is high, usage is high, trust is low, attachment is low. That's for general purpose. But obviously for legal AI specific, we're seeing much higher numbers in those regards. So now the question is, what are we going to do? What is the best go forward plan in terms of bringing AI into the institution, into the system? Problem with general AI tools: most tools generate answers, very few tools drive outcomes. Legal work requires consistency, not creativity. We all presumably use AI in our personal lives. It gives us great guidance. Sometimes we look at that guidance. I used it over the weekend and I said, show me the best omelet recipe in the world. It gave me a very good omelet recipe. Do I believe it's the best one in the world? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know how it would possibly substantiate that. That level of confidence is great for consumer use. It is less good for legal work, where anything that is being recommended to you, this clause is non-standard, this document is missing a non-assignment clause that would normally be here. Think of all of the recommendations. We propose that you change the term length. The SLAs, we propose a recommendation. The idea that the confidence of an AI tool would tell you to make that change, but not give you clear evidence or verification on where that recommendation is coming from, becomes sort of where the confidence is lower. So we think about what is the best way to bring AI into our work. And again, I'm going to say it over and over again. If you don't use a legal AI specific tool, you can't get budget for one, you can't get it approved, or you're just impatient, which is reasonable. You will get great value. But we also have to sort of be critical about where it's going to fall short. And what we think about is what's on this slide, which is that general open-ended prompts. I can ask broad question, variable outputs, which means I ask it what it thinks about this contract today. It gives me one answer. I ask what it thinks about the contract tomorrow. There's a variation on that answer. That tends to create mistrust or at least a lack of predictability, especially if you're trying to standardize things across your legal department. So if you're sitting on top of a function and this is something you want to push out to 5 lawyers or 20 lawyers or a whole system, consistency really matters. And this tends to be where general AI tools fail. Purpose-built, aka legal AI tools, tend to be very structured. The system and the rules and the policies guide the output. So there's context coming in. So it's not just sort of choose your own adventure. And predictable and it's enforcing. And so you can use it across teams and you can have a set of policies and have a set of precedent and push that consistently so that the outputs are the same for attorney X as attorney Y. And you know that you've actually implemented something that has some compliance stickiness to it from a consistency perspective. Okay. Time check. We're 22 minutes in. I'm going to reintroduce our focus on higher ed. I'm going to have Jennifer walk us through how legal AI specifically was adopted at UT Dallas. But before I do that, and before I hand this over, let me just sort of restate that for Jennifer and I, building for and engaging with higher ed is really important to us. My background, her background. And so we want your feedback. We want to build for you. And so if you don't believe me yet, you will with time. Like this is very important to us that we're building for your use cases and that we're helping automate your contracts in a meaningful way. And again, we do this at large scale. We do this for publicly traded companies all over the world. And we're now growing quickly within higher ed. And so we come here, we come to you with palms open saying, help us, help you. We launched our SimpleDocs EDU division about 6 months ago. We're seeing incredible traction, but that's what we're here to tell you about today. And with that, Jennifer, I will pass this to you. You tell me when to move the slides, but please tell us the story.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Preston. And I think, and I'm hopeful that the experience that the TechCom team at the University of Texas Dallas resonates with you all. And depending upon where you are in that continuum of adoption, you may find yourself a little bit further along. You may find yourself at the very beginning of an evaluation or journey or understanding of what a purpose-built tool could actually support your team, yourself, and others at the institution. And so with that, you can go ahead and move forward. So we mentioned that at the very beginning that we have a number of institutions of higher education, but we thought that this one would be the most relevant to this conversation because it really encapsulates everything that Preston shared with you heading into this case study. So Brian Scott, who's the Assistant Director of the Office of TechCom at the University of Texas Dallas, he and his team were small but mighty, were facing an increasing amount of contract volume and complexity, and they needed a more scalable way to actually manage that volume across agreement workflows without actually adding on any more administrative burden. And I think in a lot of the conversations what we've had with other institutions of higher education, they have found that previous adoption of large CLMs sort of failed to produce the results that they were most interested in, which was create efficiencies without creating a large deployment schedule in a way that you actually needed an individual specific to manage that CLM process. And that's certainly what they found with us. So they were looking at rising NDA or sponsored agreement volumes. Some of you on this call today may have teams that have similar experiences, but I would think that broadly speaking, anybody who is managing a procurement process or a legal process will have an example of where they're seeing multiple hundreds, thousands of agreement come across their desk that they need some way of sort of creating efficiencies around it. Our conversation with the folks at UT Dallas started almost a year ago in their review process. And by the way, we weren't the first service that they reviewed. They had a couple of failed searches, but one of the things that we found is that they were using a manual Excel-based tracking, which was obviously becoming inefficient given the contract value that they were experiencing. And for those who may be from Texas or other states that have a very specific direction with the way that public institutions, for example, in the state of Texas, have to abide by the Texas ramp process, which is an assembly, if those are less familiar with it, with very specific requirements of technology vendors to follow with regards to the compliance of the data and security. So not only did they need a partner that helped them meet their business problem, but also that met the broader requirements of the state of Texas with regards to the adoption of technology and software, and particularly AI. You can go ahead and move forward, Preston. I mentioned that they had looked at a couple of other solutions, certainly had tried out general AI, but when you're looking at specific purpose-built for contract flows after the review, security, and trialing SimpleDocs. So, you know, the process that we go through, if anybody's interested, and we'll talk a little bit more about this before we wrap up today, but if there's interest in trying the service and actually applying it to a specific contract workflow, we want to make sure that it actually does the job that we are confident that it will do, but that actually that you experience the same thing. So ultimately, after a trial period, they selected SimpleDocs, and specifically really thinking about three key attributions of the service. One is the red line in review, which Preston will show. That often is one of the tools that really gets the biggest sort of, wow, I get this. I understand how this is actually going to create some efficiencies for us. Agreement summaries, you all may deal with contracts that are 2 pages long, but I know many more are 15 pages or longer. And so they needed the tool to be able to extract key legal and business terms in a way that was efficient, and be able to communicate that to their broader team without using legalese. In other words, what is this term exactly trying to do without overcomplicating it so that my business partner can understand what the outcome is and potentially what the risk may be for the institution. And I think this is probably going to be one of the most interesting aspects of the demo that Preston is going to show you, is this idea of repeatable playbooks. And you may have as in Brian's cases, Excel sheets that that provide guidance and, you know, are an opportunity to at least share from a policy perspective what the institution or the contract reviewer should do in this way. But what the playbooks do within the Simple AI is actually codify your position so that it becomes a standardized review of those contracts that are high volume. In the case of Brian and his team, it's NDAs and sponsored research agreements. So if you can go ahead and move forward, Preston. And lastly, you know, I think one of the most interesting things, and, you know, this is an experience that Preston and I had when we were working in the Title IX and compliance world, is that broadly speaking, institutions and systems wanted to make sure that the information that was being shared with their community, that it was consistent, that it was defensible, that it minimized the risk to the institution. And as we think about the application of a tool like Simple AI or Legal AI, particularly a purpose-built tool, there's a really compelling framework around how do you actually implement this across a system. And that system can be like UT, and we're in very early conversations with them where they have 13 institutions, they have 13 tech comm teams, and they want to make sure that there's some consistency because there are state rules and regulations that they have to follow. There are institutional rules that they have to follow. But even speaking within an institution itself, when you're thinking about what kind of information is being shared between the legal and the procurement team and the business owners of the service that they're trying to contract for. So there's a really interesting and compelling discussion to be had around how a purpose-built legal AI tool can actually provide that across a system or an institution. And I know that we want to share the demo, but Preston, is there anything else that you would add that as we think about this case study in particular that might be relevant to share?
No, I think as you were talking, the only other thing that came up that I'll talk through as I'm showing the live demo is that we don't have a slide for today, but we'll add it to this deck as a follow-up, is that there's this prevailing question of how do we feel about the safety of AI? How do we feel about the what's being exposed? And I can tell you, we work with thousands of organizations around the world, some in that are defense contractors, some that are in very, protected pharmaceutical industries, publicly traded companies, companies all over the world, as I indicated. And we have very high policies from GDPR to SOC 2 Type 2. We have TexRAMP for our Texas institutions. So it goes without saying, but we'll talk more about later. But invariably through these evaluation processes, we expect to have a call or two with your info security departments to make sure that they understand the protections that are in place that you would expect, that are not training on your data, that are not storing your data for any purpose other than deliver it back to you. So we'll spend less time on that today, but I did want to mention it, and we'll make sure that there's a slide covering that in the deck as we send that as a follow-up. Okay, so without further ado, thanks for that tee up, Jennifer, and for the backstory with UT Dallas. So I'm jumping into the product now. I'm inside Microsoft Word. I don't know how many of you have ever used a Word add-in before, but they exist up here on top. So you heard Jennifer and I say Simple AI. That is a product name of SimpleDocs. It is our Word add-in, and it is incredible. So if you haven't seen a tool like this before, buckle up. If you have seen a tool like this before, I bet ours is better, but we'll see. So let's jump in and talk about the use cases. The story that I'm going to tell today is I have a master services agreement from Acme Corp. I'm going to switch hats. So at the beginning, I'm going to pretend that I'm not with Acme Corp and I'm reviewing this agreement for the first time. And then in just a minute, I'm going to flip hats and pretend that I'm on the counterparty side that is receiving this for the first time, with some red lines coming back, but it's my paper. So we have a few things that we can do inside the tool. I have precedent-based benchmarking, so I can compare red lines that I've received to things that I've done in the past. This is something that I think I would have, just about killed for as a corporate in-house attorney at the University of Miami, because the question always came up, is the thing they're asking for something that we accept? And certainly we can have internal policies and fallback positions that say under some circumstances we can accept choice of law being something other than Arkansas or whatever that may be. But typically what we also want is the benefit of the knowledge of what we've done recently, either with this exact partner or vendor, or for all agreements of this type. And this becomes actionable context for you, as I'll show you in just a moment, that allows you to make decisions just in time relative to the agreement that you're reviewing. So I'll show you that today. I'm also going to show what we call playbooks. Jennifer mentioned this. This is the codification of your negotiation rules. Those rules could be institution specific, they could be campus specific, they could be system specific. These are easy to configure. We have a great team of legal engineers who support you, to train you and your staff on how to use the tool, but also help you codify the software so that it's consistently defending your policies. This is perhaps the most powerful part of the software that'll be relevant to you all today, or hopefully relevant to you all. And then I'm also just going to show general use of how you can create memos and create comparison documents, things that would have taken multiple hours before, which can be completed in just seconds. So let's take a look. First thing I'm going to do, just in time. I have a document, I'm reviewing it quickly. All I care about are two things. Make sure, oops, all the way with a typo. Make sure choice of law is Alaska, and make sure there's no liquidated damages. So, and I have a typo there. It's going to forgive the typo because that's how wonderfully semantic AI is. So in this case, it's going to go spotting for me, which is great. So if the document is 2 pages, if it's 100 pages, it'll go find these issues. Because I have redlining turned on, if it finds the issue and I've given it a rule on what to do, then it's going to propose changes. So in this case, it's found a little bit of a liquidated damages type, cap that's going to propose that we remove. And quite simply, choice of law is Florida, and we said Alaska. I can click apply, and yes, as you would expect, it's going to mark up the document and adjust it to the requirement. Now, the reason why I refer to this as a great paralegal or a great junior associate is it's not meant to replace anybody, including those people, by the way. What it's designed to do is to be a first pass review, but not a general review, one that is based on your rules or your precedent. So it's giving you recommendation. You're going to have specific knowledge or context, which will cause you to say, nope, not this time. We're negotiating with Google. Good luck. They're not going to give us this term or this concession. So you'll always have the ability to make these overriding decisions, but it's going to give you the rule. It's going to give you the precedent. It's going to give you the recommendation in real time. So we can use this for redlining. It's great. It's wonderful. I can also use it for drafting. I need a liquidated damages clause. How about that? I need a liquidated damages clause with a 50,000 cap. So what's magical here, I assume some of you are familiar with Law Insider. That's a company that I co-founded many, many years ago that we now sit on top of at SimpleDocs. And what it does in the AI age is it's not just a repository or database of a lot of public agreements, it's actually a verification point. And so in this case, what verification means is that it's going to tell me that in this case, it's a liquidated damages clause. It's produced one for me. I can modify this further. I can make it shorter. I can make it more favorable to one side, but it's always going to be using Law Insider as a benchmark to make sure that the language that's generated, it's not hallucinated. It's using standard language. So I can see the Law Insider index score. Anything over 40 or 50 is typically a good sign that there's a lot of precedent for this in the public domain. I'm going to show you what precedent for your own documents looks like in just a minute. But assuming I like this language, I could click insert at cursor and then it could come over. Yes, for an institution, I'm sure you have your standard clauses, so we can support a clause library. So if you're like, this is great, Preston, but we know what our liquidated damages provision needs to be, or we have our default indemnification, these can be hard coded into the software as well. So instead of relying on AI, it's just pulling from your clause bank. Okay, last thing I'll show you, and then I'm going to jump into playbooks and into precedent. I can also say, I need an email for my GC that summarizes the red lines in this document. Not that your GC wants to just receive a general feedback memo. They're like, go do your job and you figure it out. But you can create work products. You can create tables. You can create comparative analysis. I could click on this attach button and upload a PDF of a previously reviewed MSA and say, tell me where these differ. Not so much version control, although you could use it for that. It's really about aligning documents that one could be 2 pages, the other could be 50. Do these business terms conflict? It's a great way to compare and analyze across document types. How does the third-party MSA compare to our own MSA? There's lots of work you can do here. In this case, I just asked it to produce an email that summarizes the red lines. So we have force majeure, we have a governing law change, we have a limitation of liability change. I can copy this, take it with me, and then use it for my correspondence back. So wonderfully powerful here. Jennifer also gave some comparative examples. So I'll pause here as I prepare to switch over to playbooks. Jennifer, anything you want to add, either relating to the UT Dallas use case or anything else in this part of the tool?
No, I think you covered it all. I think that generally speaking, when we find that team members are actually using that draft memo, that they find that actually does quite reduce the amount of time that they're spending in agreement, because sometimes the memo is harder to draft than the actual red lines are. So it's a real helpful tool.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's look at playbooks. We have a playbook library. This is not your playbook library. This is a standard one. It's expert developed. You can use these playbooks as starting points. You can modify them. You can duplicate them. You can share them with your team. It's an easy thing for me to demo because these are complete, well-structured playbooks and they're good starting points, but we also build custom playbooks. And if you have good documentation that's in a spreadsheet or it's in your head or wherever it may be, we can turn these into codified rules. But let me show you to start what it looks like to actually use an AI playbook. So I have an MSA up. I happen to have two playbooks already. You may have 10, you may have one that you use every time. These are all things that we can help configure with you. I'm going to assume that we're buy side and I'm going to run the playbook. Now, what's happening is a playbook is a codification of internal rules and policies. I ran this one earlier, so I'm going to rerun it so you can see how long it takes to process. It's going to analyze the document. It could be a 2-page document. It could be a 100-page, as Jennifer indicated. And it's going to give me a compliance score on top that indicates how compatible that document is to my rules. Now, I will tell you the most magical feature, or at least one of AI in contracting, is that it will semantically, contextually issue spot without exact keyword matching. Hope that makes sense. This was not possible 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago. So the reason that you're like, well, when did this tool come into play? Like, why didn't I have this 5 years ago? Because it wasn't possible. Because you receive a third party agreement, the clever counterparty found all sorts of sort of clever ways to hide what was going on or just be sort of intentionally verbose or whatever. And so when you said, hey, control F, does this have, warranties and, does it have unlimited liability? Or does it have auto renew? You weren't confident because the assumption was if it didn't have that exact word set, you just might as well read the whole document because it may be hidden somewhere. And you can still do that, of course, but with AI, the semantic searching ability allows it to find what's hiding in the agreement. And so in this case, I have a playbook of 28 rules, everything from force majeure to governing law to audit rights to insurance to liability carve-outs. And each of these now can be expanded with a recommendation. Now, this is where it's really important. The recommendation is based on your policies or the system policies, as Jennifer indicated. So in this case, I could say, oh, what's down here? Governing law. Let me expand it. It looks like it says Alaska, but our rule is England and Wales. So I know we're like, which party are we here? So let's assume that I'm representing a UK-based company, and so our choice of law has to be England and Wales. This agreement says Alaska. So if I apply this rule, watch what happens. It's going to, of course, mark up the document in just a second. But what it's also going to do, is it's going to bring over the corresponding comment with it. Our preferred jurisdiction is England and Wales. These are your custom comments. So we've all wasted, or not wasted, we've all spent hundreds of hours of our lives justifying the same comments or justifying the same changes over and over again with similar identical comments. This is a way to standardize that. So every time this rule is defended, that comment can come with it. But again, you're not losing control of this. It's just like having a paralegal do a first pass. You can say, in this case, I need to be a little more gentle with the language we're using, or I need to provide more context. So you can, of course, go in and resolve thread. I can delete it. I can edit it. So this is still Microsoft Word. You're still in control as you were before, but you have a really good first pass that is consistently defending your rules. Where language is missing, it can either pull from your clause bank, or it will use Law Insider to generate. In this case, we're missing an audit rights section, so Law Insider is going to give us one. And I can insert a cursor, or I can have it insert automatically. So playbooks are incredibly powerful. Under the hood, what we're helping you do, if this seems like sort of mystical at this point, everything here is structured. We'll teach you how to do this. We will help you do it. We will train your team. We will help you build your first set of playbooks. But under the hood, a playbook is a rule. It is an instruction. Make sure we don't accept this, we accept this. Make sure that there's always mutual liability. Whatever the rule is, there's a custom comment, as I showed you. There's fallbacks. If you do have primary, secondary, tertiary rules, you can add those in. We even have guidance notes. We see this very popular with colleges and universities, where you may say to a newer attorney on the team who hasn't been at the institution as long, what is the rule here? What should I do? In the case that this is flagged, please elevate to GC. Whatever the rule may be, this is an internal instruction that is now guidance that if unlimited liability appears, here's another course of action you might take in this circumstance. And this also for our sort of admins and our buyers, the ones that are centrally making the decision for institutions, this gives them a lot of comfort too, because they can sort of say, hey, within your use of this tool, please also make sure that you're instructing them on when it's appropriate to elevate and ask us for help, us meaning you or whomever sits on top of the food chain within the legal or procurement department. Okay, last thing I'm going to share really briefly, and then we'll open it up for questions, as I know we're coming up on time. We looked at playbooks. We built custom playbooks. We have a playbook library. You can share the playbooks across legal departments. The playbooks themselves can have different access rules. So different divisions within the institution can have different playbooks. You can have admins who can modify playbooks, which is very easy for you to do, which we'll teach you how to do. So think of all the enterprise controls you would expect from a tool like this so that it can be pushed out broadly. Precedent review is our newest feature, perhaps the coolest feature that we have. Playbooks are pretty dang cool too. Precedent review, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is where you're going beyond your policies and you're saying, what have we actually done in the past? And we can both integrate with repositories, we can build a repository for you, or you can upload a set of documents that you would define as your own precedent for either a specific partner or vendor, if you have enough document volume, or for an agreement type. And so I'll tell a little story here, which is, this is my MSA. I've sent it out to the counterparty. They've come back with 5 or 6 red lines. I could literally in the moment build my precedent and say, hey, in my desktop right here, I have the last 10 MSAs that I negotiated, all of which had some redlining. Let me just use that as my precedent. You could do it more comprehensively as well. But the idea is we're going to put you in a position to now compare this document to something else. And it could be comparing it against all of the MSAs in our precedent library. It could be all of our agreements with Walmart that we've signed in the past, because I want to see if they're asking for something that is abnormal or non-standard. For our purposes today, I'm just going to select my MSA library and say, show me how these red lines compare to what I've done in the past for MSAs. What's happening now? It's looking at these red lines that I've just received and comparing them against, in this case, it looks like 38 other MSAs. And it's going to give me a range of outcomes. It's going to tell me insufficient data, which means, nope, this isn't your MSA. We've never seen anything like this before, so there's no precedent. It's not going to give you false confidence by saying, oh, here's a bunch of things that you should change. if you've never done anything like this, you don't have precedent, and it's going to tell you that. There's also the other extreme, which is it's going to say commonly accepted, which means we accept this a lot across agreements of this type. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And then, of course, the other extreme is it's never accepted. But what's really, really important about this and playbooks is everything is verifiable. And so if you look at this and it gives you a recommendation and you say, I don't believe it. I don't believe that we have ever agreed to unlimited liability or that we've ever agreed for choice of law California because we have a internal rule that says we can't. Well, you can click through and verify that information and see the agreements that represent that precedent so that you will have full confidence. You may still elevate it to your GC, may end up at your provost if it's a big contract. You'll have your own escalation rules. But the idea is it's giving you verifiable recommendation that's based on what you've done in the past. So right away, we're seeing commonly accepted, never accepted. And I know that wasn't 2 seconds, but I hope you'll agree that was pretty dang fast for these red lines to be compared against 38 other agreements and to give actionable recommendations. So I have commonly accepted, I have never accepted. It has the issue that's being flagged on top. I can see the reasoning and the explanation for how we got here. And then, most importantly, I can pull through and actually see those documents. So let me show you briefly what that looks like. I'm going to switch my screen share to the pop-up that just appeared on my screen. It is right here. So I just clicked on that, and now I'm inside my precedent library, and it's showing me those 30 agreements, and I can go verify this. If I'm still skeptical, I can click all the way through to the document itself and say, show me this document. I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute so you can see what it looks like to be inside the platform on the back end where your precedent lives. But the idea is that this is a great way to verify what's here. Let me pause there and go back to the Word add-in. Jennifer, I'm not sure if we have any questions coming in, but I want to be mindful of time. When I do click through, it's going to take me to a specific agreement. This is your precedent library. I can also use AI again to verify the document. So I went all the way through to the end and say, I can ask the document, give me a summary of the warranties in this agreement. And apologies, that font's a little bit small, but and it will go do that work across, and I can do this across multiple documents if I want, but it's pulling AI all the way through to give me the confidence that the decision I'm making relative to this negotiation as it relates to precedent specifically is substantiated. I'm going to pause there. I know we are about 7 minutes from the top of the hour. Happy to answer questions. I will jump back into the Word add-in. Jennifer, if you think that there's things that I've missed, I'm happy to go back and review them. But I'll just sort of, as I'm waiting for questions, sort of say we
Yeah.
have advanced settings, we have team management, we have template libraries where you can upload your standard templates. This might be interesting to your
Yeah.
HR departments. We even have what we call company context, which is a mechanism if you have basically bright line rules of things that the institution never accepts or requires, these can prevail across playbooks. And so it'll always look for these issues no matter what. So lots of different levels in which you can bring context
Yeah.
into the software. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, funny enough, to actually show that sort of organization or company context, because one of the things that we've learned in working with other institutions of higher education is that each one of them may have a slightly different approach. And by approach, I mean tonality, language that they may never use in agreement. This is obviously an opportunity to be able to integrate sort of the voice of the institution and the tone of the institution into the contract negotiation perspective when it becomes for the purpose of legal AI.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, some of our larger
Yep.
customers even have legal style guides, if you can believe it. So it's not just the rules, but it's the style and the use of language and structure. Okay, I'm going to go back in the time that we have and just sort of wrap on the slides. Let me see if I can get to the right place. So um, we have two core products. We have Simple AI, which is what you saw today. We have an AI repository, which is also sort of a heavier version of the precedent library. And we'd love for any of you to try it for free if you're up for it. We know something like this needs to be precise, it needs to be tested. And so we try to make that incredibly easy to do. My colleagues are going to put a meeting link in the chat. Hopefully, you will see it. We'll also send a follow-up email, or Jennifer will, that
Yep.
offers to meet one-on-one. But I just want to put it out there and say we can talk about pricing. We do wonderful things for not-for-profits. I can tell you that you will not get a better price in the market for what we're offering. And this is sort of, again, our commitment to colleges and universities in the US. And what else, Jennifer? Did I forget anything?
No, I don't think so. I think you've done a wonderful job. And I do want to ask Dory, I don't have access to the Q&A or have any questions come in, Dory?
Nope, I think we are good.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Well, we'll leave it at that. I'll hang on for 3 or 4 minutes. If any questions do come in, as I mentioned, Dory did put the Calendly link in the chat there. If you can see it, we would love to walk you through and do a one-on-one presentation. We're happy to do team events. So if you have multiple stakeholders, and again, we've worked with higher ed for a long time, so we're not pushy. We know that these evaluations can take time, and today was to plant a seed and give you some awareness of a solution like ours, and hopefully from here it'll lead to more conversations and more explorations, and hopefully some trials of the software.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everybody. Dory Lord is our VP of Marketing Operations, and she makes these events possible. So a huge shout out to Dory. Um, my email address is preston@simpledocs.com. Jennifer is jennifer@simpledocs.com. And we'd love to hear from you. So let us know what we can do. And if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. But hopefully, we will be talking to all of you soon. Thank you so much.
But thanks again, Preston.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jennifer.